So yeah, as Myra said, I am delighted here tonight. I have done a number of things with members of Canoeing Ireland, with clubs of Canoeing Ireland around club planning and development previously. And as Myra said, there's the opportunity now to I suppose, reinforce good club governance through talking particularly about the roles and responsibilities of the key club officers. And obviously the most key one is the club chairperson. This is a session that we've done with Athletics Ireland very successfully. I've done on numerous occasions with clubs in counties and provincial councils within the GAA, and very successfully. It's something that there's a huge appetite for. And I would understand tonight that there's many people on this call who are currently club chairpersons, recently have been club chairpersons, may be looking at becoming club chairpersons, and you're here for that reason, to have that, to basically find out about the role, to contribute to the conversation about the role. But the two key people that we have here tonight aren't me, isn't me. The two key people I think tonight that I'm looking forward to hearing from are Brendan and Joanne, given their perspectives on it as a longer serving chairperson and a recently appointed chairperson. And I think giving those perspectives will be really powerful. So what I'm suggesting is I have a short presentation of around 10-12 minutes. Brendan has a short presentation, I think around the same length, maybe slightly longer, I don't know. Joanne is going to talk for a time as well, I think around the same time. That would bring us to about 30, 35, maybe 40 minutes, and then we'd have an opportunity for questions. And the aim is to keep this within the hour, if at all possible. I do know that when it comes to questions, it has been, when I've dealt with other organizations, it's been very good. That's probably the most powerful thing. And probably the biggest realization that everyone finds when they're doing this is how much they have in common. And how much the roles have in common. That if you're a club chairperson up in Sligo, again, sorry Brendan, or you're a club chairperson down in Leixlip, or you're down in Abbey Leaks, or wherever you are, the role doesn't change significantly. There might be certain things that you overlap on, certain things that might differ, but fundamentally the role is still the same. So if all's okay, I'm going to start sharing my screen, and I'm going to basically trust Myra that she's looking at the hands up, etc., in case there is a problem, and that she continue to hear me. Okay, so so when you look at the Canoeing Ireland website, and you look at the rules and regulations about what a club chairperson should be, the chairperson will preside at all general meetings of the club and at all meetings of the general committee. Okay, we'll come on and talk about what we mean by that in a few seconds. He or she shall be responsible for guiding the activities of the club in accordance with its rules and general policy as expressed by the majority of its members. Okay, and again, big statements, very important statements, and we'll go through those in more detail in a few seconds. The chairperson shall represent or arrange for representation of the club at Canoeing Ireland general meetings, which is a really important thing, and I think that's something that Canoeing Ireland are to be commended upon. There's many NGBs where that is not a requirement. That a lot of NGBs, for example, don't require that the office of the club would represent the club at a national meeting. And I think it's to be commended that the chairperson. Sorry, it's around the headset. Okay, so I'm talking to a microphone here, so I hope you can all hear me. So I think it's, just to come back on that point, it's very important that the person represent or arrange representation. That's very important. Not all NGBs require that. And I think the way that they do, because that Canoeing Ireland does, because what it ensures is the connectivity between what happens at a national level and what the club. Very often you see in some NGBs where people go to the general meetings and come back and don't tell anybody. It's bonkers as it sounds, it does happen. And then the other one is that the chairperson is the person and therefore has the right to be ex officio member of any other committee of the club. So I think that's important also, that is stated explicitly. That doesn't happen in all cases, but it's a good practice that it does. It's good governance that the chairperson would have that responsibility. So I think the way that it's set out, it's not a lot that's set out there, but it's very, very important what is there. And if I was to say to people, what makes a good chairperson? You'd all probably come back with much the same kind of words, and I'm sure Brendan and Joanne talk about many aspects of the role. The traits that typically come out when you talk about, and you can see them all there. It's kind of like basically the jack of all trades, as well as being the master of all trades, not just the master of number, but you can do almost everything. Leaping small buildings in a single bound is about the only thing that's missing on this one.
be able to canoe down the Great Zambezi is missing, I think, there as well. But it covers, being able to communicate, mediate, being impartial, being able to delegate. I think that's a big one. The delegate one is a huge one, guys. I think and the guys can talk, I'm sure they'll talk about delegation. Yes, so we're just saying about the importance of delegation, the importance of being organised, being fair but strong and firm, facilitating, being an ambassador, being inclusive, being decisive, and being a spokesperson for the club. I mean, they're all words, and I'm sure Brendan and Joanne, when they talk later on, will refer to many aspects of the role that has involved that. Okay, so again, I think the key things, and again, when we look at sports clubs and voluntary organisations generally, you are looking for somebody who's got excellent leadership skills, well able to plan, organise, good interpersonal skills, good communication skills, able to facilitate and negotiate, able to ensure decisions are taken and implemented, being impartial, fair, and respecting confidentiality. And that, I think that's a key thing too. If you're going to be impartial and be able to facilitate, I think that's important, that you can see different people's viewpoints while respecting what they're saying, keeping it to yourselves. And I think that delegation is the key thing. I keep coming back to that, about the ability not to be the only person in the club who does this, but being able to actually spread the load across. And I think any organisation needs that. To come on and maybe add to some of the interpretation of what Ireland have put in, that role of being the leader of the club, but recognising that you're the leader of a team, not just the boss, that you are the leader of a team, captain of a team, and you're basically trying to bring the club with you. And if you're doing it right, the club is healthy and it's cohesive and everyone's on board. I still advocate, and I've said this and Myra's heard me say this, I think a club without a plan struggles. I think a club without some kind of sense of what they're doing and why they're doing it struggles. The role in chairing the AGM and committee meetings is set out in rule or in guidance from Canoeing Ireland. But I think it's important that you're promoting the idea of holding AGMs and getting people to AGMs. Ensuring it's managed effectively, that you're working well with the other key members of the committee, the secretary and the treasurer. Upholding the rules of Canoeing Ireland, recognising that you are a club of Canoeing Ireland and that you are there to represent the club in the wider community and in Canoeing Ireland. Obviously, liaising with local stakeholders, whether it's the local sports partnership, other sports clubs, rowing, whatever, local angry fishermen, whoever you're dealing with, you are the key point of contact there. And the last point, and again, I think this is an important one, and this one cropped up actually in a recent discussion with another NGB, that whole idea of succession planning and recognising that you can't be chairperson for life. It's not a healthy thing, it's not good for you, and it's not good for your club. And behind all of that, and here Myra can recognise this diagram, this is basically the 5 key principles of good governance. You're there to lead and control without micromanaging, without actually micro-controlling. Being accountable, working effectively, and behaving with integrity. And there are guidance in good governance on those aspects. And I think if you can carry those into your role, you're doing it right. I think particularly the one I really most powerful is that one of being integrous and behaving with an ethical standard that that represents you as a person and represents you and the club as well. Recognising that you're there to lead a club, you're leading a team. Obviously, there's the things that don't tell you. Aspects of the role. The fact that you're probably going to be the key person who drives fundraising. Like, you probably will want to canoe as well, and it's a good idea that you're in canoeing as well. I know people will talk about that. Maybe you don't have to canoe all the time, but it's a key part of the role. That you've got a genuine interest in the sport. That you want to set a high standard for your club, and that really a recognition that by seeking to improve your whole club, you're also trying to improve a wider community as well. I think that's important as well. And that's been, when I've spoken to a few of your clubs before the summer, and that was one of the key messages about what they're trying to do and why they're involved for their communities. And I think that's vital. And then there's a few club plans that we saw before the summer where that was reinforced, that sense of the club within the community. So I think it's really important, and the chairperson role is really important in that regard. So I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to, without further ado, hand over to Brendan first who's going to give a quick oversight of what he does in the role. And then Joanne's going to talk about what she does as well. But first of all, I'm going to bring in Brendan, maybe just to kick off. I'm hoping that my microphone is still working here.
Hi, thanks, David. I'm Brendan Tymon. I'm a kayaker, first of all, in Sligo Kayak Club, and I was part of the club initially before I became a committee member, and then I was invited onto the committee for a particular role. So I suppose it just didn't come in as a chair. I had some time previously as another role on the committee, and I did know quite a few of the members that was there already. So I suppose, and that was part of the succession that went planning, I suppose, that went on within our own club here in Sligo. So I suppose we have an AGM every year, and that's how new committee members get elected or re-elected and nominated and re-elected or whatever. So I suppose, that's another issue I would have in mind anyhow in relation to the year as a member, or as a year is very quick, even as a chair or any other. I was lucky enough to be carried on for 4 years. I suppose at this stage need to get rid of me now. But you do need the time, you have to utilize the time very well. And I suppose looking at the description of the role, I'm going to go through it quickly there. David has referred to some of the areas there around the role as chair. I would also say that you're acting as a spokesman really for the club and representing the club to members within the club, new members that's joining the club, and other people that have some inquiries or interests. And now that we're on social media and we're on the internet and we have our webpage and so on, so there's contact, not just face-to-face, there's other inquiries and contacts from other interested parties once you're on the internet. And you've got a lot of inquiries and people that might be coming on holiday to the area that might want to avail of the club or a boat or whatever it is, and might want to join us for a couple of weeks whilst they're on holiday. So I suppose, there's a lot of variance in it because it's much more broader now. It's like I said, it's on the web page, and it's much more accessible, I suppose, publicly. Also to be thoroughly familiar, I suppose, really with matters of procedure within the club and rules within the club. And I think that's key. And I suppose, it's just not a thing about just starting into a club and hoping for the best. You kind of have to understand how it's operating, the opportunities for improvement and development, how you're working with people, how you're engaging with people on the committee, and also get a sense of the club and a direction really and what it's going to be about going forward. I suppose whilst you're also within the role as a chair, you're looking to guide meetings and to enable members to work in harmony on the committee, and I suppose to have purpose to the group and have meaningful meetings. As I said, to have a positive outcome, and hopefully, you're trying to keep it on task and achieve for the time you're utilizing the meetings for an hour and a half, 2 hours, rather than just droning on and coming away from meetings with actually nothing achieved. And I suppose that's important, the role of the chair in terms of making sure that the meeting is quite focused and working in harmony and everyone gets an opportunity to speak. I suppose, again, as David has mentioned it, to working in, I suppose, with meetings impartially really, and to be, in many ways, to have good interaction and pleasantness and tactful manners, I suppose, really, in terms of interactions with other colleagues and volunteers that are on your committee, because we're all volunteers at the end of the day, and we're only as good as the next person on the committee, really. So we're always mindful of that, and respect comes into play, and have respect for people's views and perceptions. The other thing I'd say as well is, again, the delegation bit was referred to there, and he's absolutely spot on. Delegation is very, very important role as a chair of the club, and confident in terms of what you're asking to be delegated or what you are delegating to a member. And also, it's also about involving those committee members and to be confident that it's not just a case of the job to be done here and give it to whoever. You have to dedicate that to somebody that you're confident and they're confident in delivering that particular task and role or requirement for that particular part of the role within the committee. So I suppose the committee itself then, again, you've got to measure up who's on your committee, who's elected in, who's bringing what to the committee. Everyone has something to offer. Everyone is giving their time, and I suppose building up that rapport and that working relationship. And I suppose, again, showing respect to each other and also offering people flexibility and support and consultation and discussions outside of the meeting as well, and have that positive interaction as well. And we are all kayakers at the end of the day, we're on the water together anyhow. So, we do have a fun time as well, and that's important to enjoy the opportunity to have some good times away from the meetings as well. And so meetings can be quite enjoyable and interaction and so on. So we have that going on. And I think my experience with that has been very positive. As I said, you know, I've been doing it for 4 years. It wasn't even a bad role when I continued as long as I had. And as I said, again, I was only as good as the people that was working with me. And I hadn't really had any negative experience. I think I was quite confident in the group I had working with me for the period I was there. And as I said, it just takes time to build up that working rapport with people. David talked about the traits there as well. Again, you know, being strong and confident. I suppose really, in order to be strong and confident, you have to know what you're talking about and what your vision is and your direction that you're going in the club. It's not solely just you, but again, every club have, you know, and the committee have a role to play, but also the club has to have a vision and a direction as to, in relation to whether it's development and membership, and if there's any issues that might be emerging through the club that have to be addressed by the club and the committee itself in confidentiality, and that is something that's very key, is the confidentiality bit that has to be addressed within the club, where things might be some sensitive matters that might be brought to the attention of the committee to be decided upon, and that's something that people have to be very mindful of as well. Again, David referred to this to be a facilitator and labourer, as opposed to be fair and consistent, and that's the key as well. Is that again, apart from being respectful, you know, in terms of carving up the roles, that, as we would say, you know, everyone has to have a certain part of responsibility. Is to be fair and consistent with that, and you know that we'll be delivering that recommendation that will be reviewed at the next meeting, and that's important to have that achieved as well. I suppose. Again, I'm kind of doing this off the back of the presentation that David did there, just to keep the focus again, based on my own experience. The key attributes really for the role, I would add to what David may have said there. I would also say to the bit around the delegation and the key tasks for the officers. It's also about being realistic about those achievements. You know, I know we all like to achieve a lot in the short time of the year. That's why I said a year goes very quickly. So it has to be, they have to be fairly sharp and focused around what the objectives are for that particular time. And, you know, I suppose really I worked through this over the period of COVID, which has been very difficult, and we have been off the water, but also we kept in contact with members, you know, through texting and I suppose WhatsApp groups and Facebook as well, so that people were aware and our membership was, or our members were aware of what was happening in terms of where the club was going, when we were starting back, what the rules were around COVID and all that. And that worked very well. And I suppose one of the outcomes of that was we actually maintained our membership, you know, which was fantastic. In fact, and it's increased more so now over COVID, which is amazing. Maybe parts of that might be people might be staying local, but we would say is the biggest membership we have gained is the last year or so, which we're very pleased about. Also, in terms of the key attributes as well, would be the ability to speak clearly and succinctly. I mean, again, it's not about just drifting off of the meeting and discussing stuff and not have any focus or points to it. So sharp and focused and succinctly as well in terms of the requirements of the chair. And also the ability to think objectively and remain focused when under pressure. Now, the under pressure bit comes about when you might have some sort of disagreement on opinions and views, and depending on you know, you might have certain heated personalities or strong views and opinions on stuff, and people may choose to get fairly hot and heavy about it, and we try and take the heat out of those discussions and bring it back to what the main focus is. Generally, we haven't had any major blowouts in any of that, so far my experience anyhow. But again, it's just being mindful of that. You know, you are working under pressure sometimes, and if you're time focused and you've got a fairly large agenda to get through, then you can be putting yourself under pressure as well. So it's about managing that as well. Again, like I said, you know, it's important to have a friendly disposition and a sense of humour along the way as well. You know, at the end of the day, so that's what it's. You know, we're all there together as Chairpersons. It's important not to lose that focus. David talked about responsibilities, absolutely right, and the responsibilities, you know, again for us is making sure that we maximise the service, the resource that we're providing, that everyone gets an opportunity as kayakers safely on the water. Health and safety is a huge issue and priority for us, and that we're adhering to policies and procedures around that. And again, like I said, the chair has to make sure that they're engaging with the committee around policy review and development, health and safety, and so on, more so now than ever going forward, and working in close contact with Canoeing Ireland, our representative body as well, which is very much a part of the touring and flowing interaction we have with as the role of a chair as well, as the link for the club. Good governance, again, very much part of it, in terms of making sure that we can send over everything we've done, decision making, minutes of meetings, recording of meetings, meetings approved and signed off, dates for future meetings, I suppose. Health and safety, finance as well, again, all very important, all open for scrutiny and can be scrutinised at any time. Again, it's important to have good people around you around that, and people are confident and happy to take on the role rather than doing it reluctantly. And I suppose, again, to make sure that you have integrity and, you know, a work ethic around as well, because that's very, very important in terms of there is commitment to it. And I was thinking a bit more about that in terms of things that they don't tell you these days, you know, when you're taking on roles like this, you know. So I suppose really I would say to allow yourself time, because the job in reality, to do the job, Joanne, I'm sure you're listening to now, on this one is, I said 7 to 10 hours probably a month is the average, I would say, that you need to allow yourself over the period of the month. Not literally sitting there for the whole 7 to 10 hours, but dealing with meetings and dealing with other inquiries and membership and club activities and contacting people and so on, you know, and any other admin that might be required. I suppose again also the other thing is have a genuine interest in progressing the club and where the club is going and what is your objective in each year that you want to develop the club, whether it's membership, whether it's policy development, whether it's health and safety, you know, whether it's maybe sea kayaking, not just flat water, maybe river run, whatever, those sort of things, and also looking at age ranges within the club, child protection in particular, all of those, they're all key areas that have to be thought about and make sure that they're being managed and monitored safely. Again, I'd like to think I was motivated and committed to setting high standards and stuck to those over the period of time as a committee, and I suppose, you know, that was always my experience, and hopefully I'll be continuing with that. Again, also developing other people, because we've got to think ahead in terms of your own role, my own role as it is, and maybe when I run and who take over from me and how that could be run and so on. And I suppose that's very important to think about that. And the other thing I wrote down there was expect the unexpected. And I suppose I was thinking about you know, things that might occur, or, you know, I suppose you know, that might impact on the club or might be impacting on individuals. You know, these things can happen sometimes, and I suppose safety and you know, if there's any issues or accidents or, you know, things when you least expect. And I suppose we have fairly tight governance around that we've worked hard on to make sure that when things are managed, that they're managed well and there's risk assessments in play. But again, we can't manage everything, we can't do it all. Things do happen sometimes. People get sick, people get injured, you know, people have own personal circumstances that change on time. So I suppose even within meetings day to day as a committee, things change within that, and you have to be mindful of that. You might have a couple of curveballs along the way coming into meetings that people want to change and do something differently. Be mindful of that as well. I just put a thing on there, chairpersons' do's and don'ts. Now, I think I'll just quickly mention that, and I'll conclude my bit on that. Do's, develop a pleasant and friendly manner. Treat everyone the same way. Listen attentively and impartially. Be sensitive to the general feeling of the meeting. Start on time. End at a reasonable time, and I say average meetings 60 to 90 minutes. Don'ts for the chairperson, be long-winded, appear to be disinterested or fidgeting when another committee member may be talking or maybe expressing their views or opinions. Be impartial and I suppose not confrontational with individuals. Also, don't resist it, no resistance to change, or, you know, taking a risk at times, or obviously have to be fairly measured. Or also don't be a stick in the mud or paddle in the water, whatever way you want to do it. Yeah, so there concludes my presentation.
Thanks, Ian, Brendan. Some really interesting points there. I like that do's and don'ts at the end. That's an idea I might rub off. Yeah, that's a great idea. I do like the other thing that we might raise later on is that idea of developing as a member of the committee into the role of being the club chairperson that you mentioned at the very beginning, and the overarching message of expect the unexpected, but have the team prepared for that and working with the team to prepare for that moment. So, yeah, no, really good. And again, Probably going to maybe ask Joanne to lead off, and then we might follow with questions at the end. Joanne, are you okay to go now?
Yeah, thanks, guys. I kind of wish I'd done this session before I became chairperson, actually, but we'll go with it. Hi, everyone. My name is Joanne Brogan. I'm the chairperson for Trim Canoe Club here in Meath. Very, very new to the role. I only took it on in August just past. I'd love to be able to say that I had a real game plan and a plan to become chairperson. It really wasn't like that. I rocked up to the AGM, got told there was nothing to it, nothing really to do, not much to worry about. And I said, okay, why not? And went home an hour later Googling, what does chairperson of a community club do? And that was all fine. A couple of weeks later, I had Moira saying, listen, we have this workshop, would you mind presenting? And then a couple of weeks later after that, we have probably Trim's biggest project coming our way in terms of looking for a permanent home, and all of the work that goes with that in terms of land and funding and all of that. So when I was making notes for this, I actually literally wrote down expect the unexpected. So I'm glad to hear Brendan said it too. I think in terms of the background to our club, Trim has a great history. It's been there for 25 years, grown in numbers, and over the last few years we've really taken off. We've got 60 right now, with another 50 actually sitting on a waiting list that we haven't yet been able to accommodate this year. We range from 18 right up to 62. Our women participation has gone up. It's about 40% at the moment, and actually over half of the people we have sitting on our waiting list are women. So now my own theory is that after 2 years of COVID and lockdowns and school closures, that we're all just sick of being at home with the kids and everybody wants a bit of space, but maybe not everybody. That kind of brings me a little bit to why I took this at the AGM. As I said, I didn't go in with any game plan. Actually, I didn't go with any intention of getting a job. I just went along. I've gotten a lot out of the club. I've only been paddling since 2020, so the first COVID lockdown. I don't think my canoeing experience from 25 years ago actually really counts. And that, I suppose, diversity that we have now came through at the AGM. We have a lot of people like myself who are fairly new to the sport, but there's a great vibrancy in the club, a great interest in what the club can do, how we can develop. We have a real mix of people that really know what they're doing, and a real mix of people that are just starting out and with different ambitions in terms of what they want to get out of it. And I think the representation at the AGM in terms of people putting their hand up for roles, and like myself, not necessarily having that much experience, really came through. It wasn't alone, let's say, and so the result is we have a kind of a mixed committee of people that have experience, know what they're doing, have experience in the committee, and people that are new to it. And actually, it works quite well. We're seeing some really good movement in terms of trying to line out our priorities, trying to line out what we'd like to do, different structures, different plans, looking at leadership courses, looking at obviously our land project, and a real, I suppose, energy. And I think that in part is probably the fact that a lot of us are new to this. There's a lot of good intentions coming through, and also in terms of actions getting done, even in the short time since we've formed. So I think, when I was, I'm not going to be able to tell anybody on tonight that there's already a chairperson how best to do the job. I've been taking notes the whole way going, yes, okay, right, I'll do that. But I guess for anybody that's thinking about it, I suppose the message is, I suppose, why not? I think particularly for the increase, let's say, in outdoor activity, and particularly the increase for women, I think a lot of clubs are seeing a lot more interest. There's a lot of, you know, message out there. If you can see it, you can be it. I think it's really great to have that. I think, you know, in our own club, we're really, I suppose, promoting that balance, and I think it comes across. I think it's a really great thing to see. I think there's a lot of space in the sport for different ambitions. People want different things out of it. We, in our case, we have a group, you know, we have lots of people that really want, you know, to learn, develop, to get, you know, to really improve their skills, and some people that want to, you know, go paddling and have cake and coffee at the end, and both are fine, and there's room for that. So I think that works well. When I was looking at, I suppose, what was important for my first literally months in the role, when we were doing a planning meeting for this a few weeks ago, Brendan actually said something, and I made a note, and I was like, yep, that's important. And he mentioned it again there about, you know, only as good as the people you have around you. And I think that's really key. Having the committee there, having people work together, take different jobs, you know, being able to have a discussion easily and fairly and without any kind of great emotions is really important. And I think with that's something that we have going for Trim. I think we've got a very kind of a great opportunity at the moment to harness that and move the club forward. I literally had written down expect the unexpected, but that's only from my personal experience of being landed in what I thought was going to be a fairly easy run of it, and going to a few meetings, and all of a sudden has become my second job. But you know, and the other thing is, don't expect there not to be that amount of work involved. There will be, but I guess from my perspective, I see the club as being made up of all of the people that we've gotten to know. The club needs the committee. The committee is only, it's made up of people from the club, so we all have to do our bit. And I suppose that's why I said, yeah, okay, no problem. I'll do it. But it is work, and it's different types of work, and it's different bits and pieces that are always on the go. But it is very rewarding. I'm getting a lot out of it. Maybe come back to me in a couple of years. I might be more jaded, but I think it's a really great challenge. And I suppose the ideal path would be someone who not necessarily has an awful lot more experience, but maybe having a role in the committee first is probably no bad thing. Does it work without it? I'll see how I go. I'm sure it'll be fine. But I think it's something that I suppose it's good to have change as well. It's good to have new faces, new people, new ideas, new energy. Just even the energy of different people working together that haven't before. You can have a lot coming out of that. So I don't have anything else really to add in. That's my piece for tonight. I think we'll go back to David.
Joanne, that was excellent. Thank you so much. I like that idea of the great challenge. It's great fun and getting people in, and again reinforcing a lot of the same points that Brendan was saying about that. The team is so important. It's just critical to it, and getting that team around you. It's really important. Guys, thanks Brendan and Joanne for really engaging points. And just maybe I'm going to open the floor to questions. I'd like to commend the two guys on managing to keep the time. I said that would take 40 minutes, and it took it almost to the button. So fair play. Again, that's good chairpersonship, by the way. So that's good as well. So I'm going to open the floor, and I'm happy to take questions via the chat. I'm sure Maura can see the chat as well. Or if you want to stick up the hand and maybe ask a question or make a point and follow on to what Brendan and Joanne and myself have said, that'd be really welcome. So.
And actually, maybe if you have something to say, maybe just unmute yourself, as long as there's nobody else talking at the same time as you work away there, because I'm working on two screens here, so it's hard to see both at the same time. If you don't mind me starting, I'll go first.
Yeah,
while you're figuring where the unmute button is there. Just to say thanks a million first to both for presenting. That was really fabulous, and a very realistic assessment, I think, of what a chairperson's job is like. And it was really it was I thought very honest, and I wish to you the best of luck for the next year in it. But it's funny because you both mentioned the fact that there's an increase in membership and waiting lists over COVID, and something that struck me was that we were asked to get involved in the Let's Get Back campaign with Sport Ireland, and you know it didn't matter. I had to sit in about 3 meetings with it, and it didn't matter how many times I explained that we actually we weren't off the water a whole lot. We were kind of one of the few sports that was there a lot, but most clubs at this stage have seen an increase in interest in paddling and are struggling to hold on, because they were kind of saying you're losing people out of the sport, generally to sport. And I said, actually, we're not. We have so many people who want to get involved in paddling at this stage that our challenge really is, how do we just match the resources with the number of people who want to get involved with us at this point in time, and maybe not lose some of them back to the other sports when everyone is fully open again. But we have a kind of a unique challenge. So in case anyone thought we were actually mad putting Let's Get Back up when everyone was flat out, we try and do it. It's kind of a function of the funding. If you do what you're asked, you're more likely to get the extra funding when you ask for it. So that's where that came from.
Thanks, Mara. See, Mark has got his hand up there. Mark, do you want to come in?
Yeah, just one of the things, and it was something that was said there, was about, you know, trying to progress the club as a chairman, and more something you've just actually brought up there when you were just talking there. I'm the instructor for Eric Kayak Club down here in Roscommon, and we're a baby club. If you rolled us over, you'd still see our nappy rash. That's how young we are. But we've members that we're nearly up on, I think it's 37 members that are level 2 kayaking. My big problem is that I have 3 members that are ready to become instructors and have to try and get access to courses. And I have 8 that I'm currently training for level 3 river, and trying to get those assessments and everything organized. And my big problem at the moment is trying to get access to courses, because if I can get more instructors on the water, it means then I can, the same as Joanne and probably Brendan and an awful lot of other people here, is I have a waiting list of nearly 25. And I suppose Erit is a unique club because 80% of our members are women. And we're predominantly a female club. And I suppose it's trying to get advice to where I can go to progress my members into the next level.
Yeah. I might actually, rather than me talking all the time, I know that Finbar is here. Finbar, if do you want to unmute and just talk about what happened in Laois with you're still there, I presume? You are.
I am. I was I'm just not long in from work, so that's why my camera turned off. Sorry, folks. There's stuff in my face for the last, during this wonderful presentations by Brendan, and I'm sorry, I apologize, I didn't get the second name.
Joanne.
Who was the second? Joanne. Sorry, Joanne. Very good. Really interesting, and I love all the corporate governance stuff, especially what Brendan conveyed across. Really good. So 2 things. Mark, don't worry. We were in the same position as you were. We were looking down at, it was actually prior to an AGM, Canoeing Ireland AGM, we were in grave difficulty. We were looking at running trips to Clashganny and running trips to the Dreen and Avonmore and all these places with our peers, but we felt we weren't covered by insurance, which we probably weren't at the time. We were just running on the seat of our pants really and hoping for the best. And then the insurance came on board and they basically said that, and I'm sure the most wonderful Maura will correct me if I'm wrong here, that effectively once you do a risk assessment, you're competent to do that risk assessment and you adhere to that risk assessment, you're covered by the insurance. So what we developed, and thanks to David and his great guidance this year with the club development strategy, we developed our club strategy, 5-year strategy, and it's all focused around club leadership. We would have heretofore been focused on instructors, and it's not about that at all. It's all about ensuring that you've got good leaders who are competent to fill out risk assessments and to lead river trips. If I was to go into the club strategy, I'll probably take up that a good 40 minutes, so I won't go in there. So I'll just answer the question that I was asked. And effectively, I wouldn't be worrying about the instructors. The focus for the purpose of instructors can shift to the outdoor education and training centres and outsource it to them if you don't have the capacity, and focus your mind on what would you constitute to be a club leader. And for us, a club leader is a person who holds our a level three skill award. By the sounds of it, you've achieved that. They also need to have a River Safety and Rescue 2 course, which is quite easy to obtain. And as part of our course commencing last year, and to motivate club leaders, we provide a subsidised refresher, which is not on the syllabus for Canoeing Ireland, but we do it ourselves on our own back. And we hire in an outside instructor to run that for us. We also require Reg 3 course to be completed by our club leaders, and we all know what that is, I'm sure. I'm not going to go into that. And to get the revalidations up to date every 2 years. And the last two things then is, if you're going to be doing leading trips where there's children involved, you require to have obviously Garda vetting, and you require to have your child safeguarding course done with Canoeing Ireland. And again, thank you, Maura, for running those courses this year. They've been epic. So that's really what a club leader is. It's not specified on the leadership framework or on the skills framework of Canoeing Ireland. It's what's set in our sorry, my battery's about to die, folks. If I've lost you, I hope I haven't. If I drop off, I've done the best I can. So you need to have a club constitution. In your club constitution, set out what is a leader. If you were to be aware of the recent marine investigation report that was published recently, leadership is what matters. And if you're able to lead and you're able to confidently and competently fill out a risk assessment and see it through, you're on a winner. So there you go.
Thanks, Finbar. Just to add a little bit to that, Mark, when filling out the risk assessment needs to be kind of comprehensive enough that nobody is going to be put in danger. But to add to that, if you're in particular difficulty with instructors at particular levels, just get in touch with us. What we're trying to do is do a kind of an outreach program and bring groups together who need a particular course and send people out to do it. So we're very happy to kind of support you in that in any way that we can. I think there was a question there as well from, sorry, David, a question from Gildas.
Yeah, from Gildas. Does a chairperson need to be at a particularly kayaking proficiency or even a particular instructor level, or can a newcomer to kayaking take on the role? Can I give you my answer from looking in? But again, my sense is no. My sense is you don't have to. And again, Joanne's got her hand up there, kind of going. Joanne's going to say, "I'm a newcomer and I'm chairing a club." I think once you've got someone who's got a passion for kayaking, for the sport, I think that's the important thing. I really think so. I've seen the most successful clubs having probably the guy with the least proficiency in the sport, you know, but with an absolute passion for it and wanting to make it better. Joanne, do you want to come in there? I'm not picking you as an example now, but do you want to give us maybe talk about that question?
Yeah, well, if you'd hear me squealing going over the weirs, you'd no, you don't have to be. I don't think there's no requirement for you to be any particular skill. I'm only a level 2 since last year, right? So I don't think there is, or you know. So I mean, would it help? Maybe, maybe not. I think, as you said, you just need to be interested, want to do it, and I suppose willing to learn, because you're going to have to learn a lot, and you will have to get up to speed with everything that you know that is needed in terms of knowing where people are at and what they need to get to, or what you're trying to develop the people to. But you don't necessarily need to know it all yourself or be able to do it all yourself.
I think that's key. Don't do it all yourself. I saw David from Innie's Tom going up there. I don't know if that was a question or reinforcing what you were saying, Joanne, about your comments there. So
just reinforcing, David. That's all. Yeah,
that's
very
great.
good.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate that. Okay.
I think potentially as well, just to add to what Joanne said there, it comes back as well to having good people around you. So while you might not have all of the technical information you need, and I know that Kevin is on the call here as well, and Kevin would be a great support to Trim Canoe Club and has been around the block a few times in the variety of things, that he would be great at giving advice if there's a particular question asked. So it is all about the team, definitely. It's about having a good team around you.
I would also, Maura, just to respond to what the question Mark asked there about the structures bit, and certainly that would be our experience, Mark, as well in Sligo area, to get people that, first of all, that want to be instructors. We have a number of people, thankfully, coming through this year, but it has been a long process to bring people, up to a certain standard and get the opportunity then to be assessed and get the hours that we need to put in as well. So it's not just something unique to you. Don't worry. So. And it's kind of also building the networks to locate people and engage with other people that may be able to involve or give you support and assistance. And that's what we've had to work hard on locally, but also to have, to build that capacity within the club does take a lot of work and effort and dedication on behalf of those people that want to take on that role of responsibility. But, again, the role of the chair there is, again, to facilitate those opportunities best you can. And some of those things can be protracted and drawn out because people's circumstances are variable at times. But again, just to say to you that we would experience the same difficulties here.
Thanks, Brendan. Kevin has got his hand up there, Kevin Horan.
Yeah, just one comment would be really helpful, because I was the chair of the club a good few years back, and there's no sort of guidebook to running the club or being a chair. So like if there was some sort of a session, a one-day workshop that could be held, once a year, that would help people sort of understand. I think Joanne wouldn't have taken the job if she had that beforehand, but it would be really useful to have an understanding of, the constitution of the club, what roles you need to fill, what the role of the chairperson is in particular, and what that really means. And especially with so many clubs having to become limited companies as well, especially when they're buying equipment, and we're talking about land, and one of the things that suddenly popped up is now you have to have 4 people nominated as directors of the club, which is a difference to being a volunteer, where you don't really have as much sense of responsibility. So some sort of a workshop day once a year for people that would be interested in it might be something useful.
Yeah. A good idea, Kevin. And also maybe a kind of a network of chairs and a network of secretaries, so you can kind of interact with each other, you know what I mean, maybe on a kind of a regular basis for things that might pop up, just talking among yourselves, really.
We have a comment in the chat, but I also see Mark's hand has gone up there. Maybe it's just in response to some of the questions today, Mark, or is it another question?
Well, it's actually just a response, just to sort of add on to Kevin there. The one thing that we did set up, having been involved in Scouts for so long and then being volunteered for the job as chair in Erith, we actually set up a individual email address as chairperson Erith Kaya Club, treasurer Erith Kaya Club, and we went down through all the roles. So it means that when I do hand the role to somebody else, I just give them the password to my email, to that email address. So they have all the information and all the emails scrolling back through the years. So they have access to everything that's been passed between treasurer, secretary, or any outside bodies, that all the information is there.
I think that's
I just thought it would help. It would help me hand it on to somebody else, so all that information is not lost.
Great idea. Yeah.
That's a great idea. It's a really just simple thing to do. I actually was talking one time to a group of clubs in a particular GA county board, and somebody said, yeah, we had that set up, and when the account was handed to me, I realized the whole thing had been cleared down. I don't think the AGM had been particularly agreeable. I think somebody had been voted out and in response. But anyway, so I'm not encouraging that, by the way. I'm just saying it does happen. Pat, you had your hand up. Was that in response to Mark?
Yeah, look, I suppose we're in the same position as Mark. We're a relatively new club. We're in the same position with instructors. We have one guy that's at level 3 that's trying to get an instructorship. I suppose we have 2 instructors, and the fear at the moment is burnout with the 2 instructors, because between taster sessions, Kildare Sports Partnership, one of them has his own business, and then we're trying to get all the new members at level 2 and get the existing members for the last years or year and a half since lockdown up to level 3. So with 2 instructors and the amount of work they have, we could really do with getting, I don't know whether assistance from other clubs or getting 1 or 2 of our own up to level 3 and get them onto an instructorship as soon as possible. In relation to the other question, to be a long period of time at a job to take it over, no, you don't. Many a good football manager has never kicked football and are earning serious money in higher leagues. In our relationship then to the chair, I am the chairman at present, and what we decided was that whoever came in as vice chairman would probably be the next chairperson. So he would already have a year or 2 or whatever in the role as vice chair and would roll it on. So if that's any help to anybody.
That's excellent. I wonder if anyone would like to comment on a question around disruptive committee, dealing with disruptive committee members as chair.
Everyone goes silent.
I suppose more right. I have I mean, I would say I haven't had that experience in the committees I've been certainly in, but in maybe separately of those meetings, maybe in the work that I do, that that wouldn't be unusual. But again, there is, I suppose, really we all understand what our individual roles are. We have it described, I suppose, in our constitution, really. And there is an expectation that people, as I outlined earlier, about the respect and responsibility for each individual role, and the role is taken seriously. And I suppose, I would, as the chair, certainly has the responsibility to ensure meetings run smoothly without any difficulty. But if there's going to be continuation of a disruptive committee member, well, then that's something that has to be handled in a very, I suppose, effective way, really, if it's going to continue. And certainly there would be, a process of addressing it directly with the person. I want to see what exactly is the issue. And I suppose if it's not being resolved at that particular time, another attempt will be made. But again, there might have to be, has to step down if there's no mutual arrangement around coming to an understanding of managing the behaviour, really, because the bottom line is we're all volunteers. We're not being on a salary or paid for what we do. And we all want to get in the water, and we don't want to spend any time dealing with nonsense that sometimes can be presented by someone that mightn't necessarily, want to work with the committee the way the club is going. So I suppose I wouldn't have an awful time for it, but I have no problem dealing with it if there was an issue. But ultimately, it would be bad from the committee, and that would be a vote of the committee.
I think.
Sorry. I actually recently had an issue on our committee where 2 of our committee members stepped down, and it's sort of like that. It had to be something that was dealt with sort of head on. It's one of the things where I try to control it as best I could within the committee and not involve the rest of the club. And when one of the committee members decided no, she wanted the entire club involved, I didn't deny her the platform to try and do that. But the only thing is the other committee members were aware of it, and we were prepared for what was coming at us. And it's only through that communication and having a good, solid committee around you that if somebody does take umbrage with a decision that you make, that you can actually stand by it. And that was the only thing that we ever had to deal with.
Thanks, Mark. yeah, it reminds me there was a post online a few months ago of 2 parish councils in the UK.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
And you were looking at how disruptive an online meeting could be, but I think it was about setting the ground rules and defining those. And as Brendan said, when you're dealing with it, try to manage it in a manner that doesn't escalate immediately, but progresses through, somebody trying to deal with it, and then have a process for dealing. If somebody just won't cooperate, for ultimately having to remove, but ideally never hoping that you never get to that point. The chat has lit up here, Myra. We've got we've got 3 or 4 comments at the moment. Can I maybe just take the first one? Roger from Kilkenny has made I finally found a very good successor. That's a good way of describing it, Roger. How long should people fill roles on committees for? And I don't think there's any specific guidance given within any Canoeing Ireland rules and so on, but I again just be curious what people think.
I suppose what I'd say, based on my experience, again, I've been part of the committee for about 6 years, 7 years overall, I suppose. But moving around in different roles. I mean, obviously, again, it's elected process. Once a year. I indicated earlier on maybe that should be longer period than that, because the year is so quick. You're only settling into the roles when it's time to be going for another AGM to elect again, and that's what it's a democratic process. I mean, if you're elected by the members. That's how it works with us. It's not a case of handing anything to anybody else. You're elected by the members, and if you don't get the vote count, then you're not in. That's it, But I suppose I have had other roles on the committee, and the chair being the 4 years in succession. So, no one told me that I would be there. I always thought it was going to be a year, but 1 year ran into the next. And again, every year it was an elected process. Once you're putting yourself forward, obviously.
I found myself as chairman of a different club for a different canoe club for a few years, and they had a process whereby the chairman has a 2-year cycle, which is an interesting way. It comes up for a review every 2 years at the AGM, and that's a prompter to change the chairman if they don't like it or you don't like the job.
Yeah. I would say, on a personal basis, I think that it's different things suit different people, but I think that on the basis of terms, depending on, some people would have 1 term, as it should be in your constitution what your term is. Sometimes it's 1, sometimes it's 2 years. I think that there should be a term where you actually have the job and a term where you're getting your successor ready to take on. So you're learning the reins in your first term, or learning how to take the reins, and for the second one you're bringing somebody else on board. So that position, and it's really hard to fill it sometimes, because there's clubs, trying to get people into roles in clubs is quite hard. But if you can have a chairperson and an assistant chair, and it's understood that the assistant chair is going to step into that role, that's really helpful if you get that in place. I think I would say probably 6 years. After 6 years, what I think after 6 years happens is that nobody will go forward for the role, because that you're embedded in it, and they don't think anyone else is ever going to do the job the same way you do. If you're there 6 years, you're probably doing a pretty good job. So maybe think about finding a successor at that stage.
I think that's a really good point. I think
I was just going to say we would have run about 4 years. 2 to 4 would be kind of what we'd run normally, and it has healthy enough, and change roles. Then you can still be on the committee or change roles within that.
No,
it's fine. Yeah, that's the way it's worked for us. Yeah.
I think that's important, and Myra, that's a good point about if you stay too long, people just won't replace you. They just see it as too difficult. I think it's kind of 3 years possibly is the minimum, kind of that year settling in, year doing the job, year handing over, it kind of, and maybe 2 of those maximum. But I think having a defined term in your constitution is the key thing, so there's a way out, and they know there's a way out of you too. You know what I mean? I think that's no bad thing as well. It works both ways. With the question on the chat, Myra, was how do clubs attract members, strong youth membership, teenagers? And we got a response from Jonathan. We got a response from David Donnelly and Orla and Michael about different tactics. One is joint parent and juniors training. Lots of teens and lots on the waiting list. Word of mouth and Facebook are the biggest drivers of requests for membership for us. And then the other one is, once you get teenagers from a school on board as members, to spread the word and attract others, and that whole social thing probably takes off as well. So yeah, just interesting points. Does anybody want to add anything on that one Brendan or Joanne, in terms of that?
Well, I think the notion of involving parents is good, and sometimes parents involve their teenagers, because sometimes some of them choose not to be playing any other sport sometimes, and getting them into kayaking can be a great way of bringing them out themselves. You know, they mightn't even like the other physical sports like GAA or other sports. So we would have a number of those that would have joined us, and their siblings would have come along as well. And I suppose we have linked in a lot with close allies with our schools locally in Sligo, both of whom now have developed their own kayaking clubs. And we work in conjunction with them. So you know, they come into us over the winter period, and they're on the river with the school, and their parents will be still with us over the winter period. And if there's any other opportunities coming up, they will join us. So, you know, I suppose, like I said earlier on, key part of that role is your networking in the community. And that does include maybe having the reaching out towards the schools as well, where the young people are, because ultimately they're very much part of our membership as well. We want to keep them very much involved in club activities. As well, we utilise the local swimming pool as well for a Sunday night over the winter period. And again, that's open-ended in terms of including teenagers or their teachers or whatever into that as well. So I suppose we give and take all round, win-win, because we both win from it. And of course, those younger people are progressing very quickly, unlike the oldies like myself. And they're certainly coming up to level 3 and want to be in level 4 or whatever, you know. So they're fearless on the water and on the rivers, really. But yeah, I suppose it's you know, it's give and take really with a lot of our local community schools.
Yeah, sorry, Brendan. No, thanks for that. Says Jonathan. I'm in Donegal and a recent chairman of the Donegal Sea and Surf Paddling Club up here. Now we're a small club, and we've tried to attract younger members, and we've run pool sessions, but we certainly repeatedly find that we'd run sort of those introductory training pool sessions, and then it's quite hard to get the continuation of those people, either over the summer or through it. They sort of try it, and it's a lot different being away from the warm water of a pool and out and about, and even getting teenagers in. At the moment, we don't have any under 18 members. We've about 22 members at the moment. So it's something we're looking at. Whether we can build it, I don't know, but I think it's something we need to try and do. But I think if we could get consistent pool sessions and consistent training, I think that would really attract the youngsters.
Yeah,
but
I think Jonathan, to some extent, teenagers and young adults tend to kind of hunt in packs. I think you know, if you get a group in and you can manage to hold on to the group, well then they'll stick with you and they'll bring their friends. I think what happens is if you get 3 in and one drops, you're left with 2, and they're thinking, dear God, if one more person goes, I'm on my own here. And so they'll kind of, you know, it's really like a race to the bottom at that stage.
Yeah. Okay. No, thanks for your thoughts there. Much appreciated.
Thanks for the question and for coming back in there. We had one further comment from David Donnelly on the linking to the sports partnership. They run courses. I think it was to do with the instructor help. And he also said they've got money, so we're all up to Longford, lads. Here we go. So, okay.
I think it was nationally I was talking there. Not in Longford in particular, no. Oh, Centre Parks is right beside us, so maybe that's where the money's coming from. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any further questions? I'm conscious we've gone past the hour. I don't want to stop the conversation. If people want to keep going, we'll keep going.
Can I just say at this stage, before I get into terrible trouble with the National Children's Officer who's on the call at the moment, Heather, I'm so sorry. I know that I took all the plaudits there for running the Safeguarding 1 courses. I'm not the ones giving up my evenings to do them. It actually is Heather who runs the courses. So thanks, Finbar. I'll take all the pats on the back there, but it's actually Heather who's looking after them.
And David is echoing that as well. So. Any further questions or comments, guys?
Could I add in one thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Work away from there.
Get cut off. The battery's on 3% when I'm good to go. Just for us in the club, it was of great strategic importance to include persons from local committees such as the Tidy Towns Committee and the Scarecrow Committee in Durrow, County Laois, on our committee as non-paddling members. So they joined Canoeing Ireland as, I can't think of the name of the membership, but there's a type of membership for non-paddlers. They are associate membership, we should say. and they are members of our club even though they don't paddle, but they support the concept of having a paddling community in Durrow. So that has helped us, especially when it came to various crowds who might be anti-paddlers, such as fishing communities. Just said I'll leave that with you.
That's a nice idea, Finbar. I think there's a role for everybody in the club. Leo, you have your hand up there.
Yeah, hi. Just wanted to throw it out to the people on the call here. How do you find is the best way to incentivize or attract volunteers to join committees and put themselves forward? Like I'm just recently after becoming chairman of the Kilcock Canoe Polo Club, and I suppose our long-term goal, like we've a large number of children involved in the club, and parents are obviously the mainstay and the backbone of what the club uses to help facilitate the ongoing activities. But the problem that we find with COVID for the last 2 years, it's been very hard to get new parents to be involved, obviously with transmission of disease. But going forward, is there a strategy or is there thoughts on how we can face that or make it work that we can get more volunteers in?
Just tell them there's no work involved. Do it.
It's only about 30 minutes a month or something, like, not I know. Just before I hand over to others to answer that question, my sense is that you basically tell them this is what the job involves. This is what I'm asking you to do. If you're signing up on this basis, I think it's about ease them into it. Smaller roles building up, that you don't suddenly go, you're the club secretary now, look after everything, see ya. I think it's about breaking it down. Again, I'm going to hand over, I'm going to open, because it's a big question, and it's a question that every time you go into a talk like this, it's volunteers. How do we get volunteers? David, you got your hand up. I don't know if
it was just to same point, David and Leo, is don't think about your succession planning, but bring them in as a general officer, or maybe to do one particular small job to get a feel for it, and ask them if they'd like to do it for a year and try it. And that's, don't ask them to be chair or secretary first day out. Yeah, just same as that, as David said. Yeah.
So Joanne is smiling at that, having signed up as chairperson.
You're really stupid now.
Somebody caught a jet there.
Yeah.
Treating them all equal and having a role for every one of them would be, if one sees another getting more favoritism, I suppose is the way I put it, or getting more jobs than the other, it kind of, well, what's the point of me being here? They're doing it all, that kind of a thing. As in relation to Finbar, we're somewhat involved with the tidy towns as well, and Waterways Ireland, so we clean up the canals on a regular basis, any rubbish that's in it, and along our stretch of the Barrow. So it kind of keeps the tidy towns in the loop with us, and Waterways Ireland as well. We keep on the good side of them, I suppose.
Yeah. And I really like the idea of bringing them in on a small kind of ease them into a role without them realizing what's coming down the road. And Leo tends to work very well. And the other thing would be if they can actually see that there is succession in place. So there's nothing worse than putting your hand up for a volunteer role and then you realize it's a job for life because no one else is coming along behind you to take it on. So I think that kind of bringing them in for sport. Now there's a huge initiative going on within Sport Ireland at the moment in relation to volunteers and volunteer engagement and volunteer appreciation and that. And I have a sense that to some extent it's not even tickling the problem of volunteers, to be honest with you. So if anyone has any bright ideas, please get in touch to let me know, because Sport Ireland are very interested in listening to any ideas anyone has for engaging volunteers or holding on to volunteers.
And I suppose if you can get the volunteers on the water, I think at my end of it, I work long hours and 6 days a week. But from the time, it's not like when I was involved, I was predominantly football. So I'm like Joanne, we started club 2 years ago. But I came from a GA background, and then your Sundays was pressure to win. to get to the next match, training, this, that, all shouting, roaring. Once I get in the water now, I think the mental health, you totally switch off from last week's work, next week's work, and for that 1 hour, 4 hours, whatever we're on the water, it's just kayaking and enjoying the people that you're on the water with and just have the laugh. So I think mental health has to be really promoted within Canoeing Ireland.
Yeah, agreed, absolutely, yeah.
Kevin, you've your hand up there.
Yeah, just about the attracting and retaining volunteers. One company that I worked for a couple of years back, they had this the good old corporate responsibility piece, and they recognized people's time that they were giving out as volunteers, whether it was with the Tymon community. But there wasn't any, and we had one person who was volunteering with the GAA and was getting that recognized as part of their corporate responsibility. So there are ways, if it can be promoted within businesses as well, that, you know, this is something that people do as part of their community, and get it recognized that way, and it incentivizes people to actually do a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think that that pressure to succeed can also lead to, like you referred to, Pat, in some sports, can lead to bad governance as well. People making bad calls and, you know, going outside the boundaries of, you know, paying money for volunteers, you know, all this kind of stuff, you know. This is
totally agree.
Ora is saying Pádraig Minic has a question. I think I missed that. Sorry, Pádraig. You're muted there.
Sorry there, guys. Yeah, just a couple of comments, if that's okay.
Work away, yeah.
Somebody mentioned earlier, can everyone hear me okay? Yeah?
Yeah.
Just in relation to, I think it was Mark mentioned something about setting up a limited company. Just a quick question on that. Is that a necessary thing now for a club? Maybe if someone could let me know.
David?
It depends. That's the answer. It depends. It depends on what you're trying to do and what you have to do. I think it comes with its challenges. If you're going to go down that pathway, I would receive advice, and I'm sure Canoeing Ireland can probably advise in aspects of that, Moira.
Yeah.
But it depends on what you want to do, Pádraig, really. You know, if you're taking ownership of land, if you're taking on certain equipment, if it's a requirement of certain grant authorities, it depends. I'm just giving you how long is a piece of string answer, didn't I? I think that's but again, that's it, really.
Yeah, I was involved for 20 years with scouting, and it became necessary for you know, for groups to set up trustees and all that good stuff, and I think it saw a major fall off in leaders, in scouters across the board. You know,
it does. It imposes different requirements on the, you know, a committee potentially being directors of a company, which is a completely different set of responsibilities. You know, all involved in that.
Yeah, I was also involved with the St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee, which was a limited company also. I just wondered if in Ireland are going down that road now, it might pose a lot of problems down the road, you know.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think we're actually going to ever. I don't think it would be our business to tell clubs to become limited companies or not. But there may be times in a club's life where, due to the business or the way that the club is being run, that there would be a requirement for it to be a company rather than a volunteer group. But as David says, that the actual extra requirements that come under company law for actually complying with your fiduciary duties and running something as a company far exceeds what I think a lot of volunteers might sign up for in relation to being on a club committee. You know, it's an entirely different set of rules that guide you. So I would say, unless you have to do it, I would advise you not to do it. Keep it nice and simple.
Yeah, well, we have no intentions of actually doing that. We are volunteers. We're a group of volunteers, and we concentrate on paddling.
Yeah. And there are some clubs that are set up as companies, and they would have had to do that for various reasons, because of the way that they like one club in particular would own a property that was donated to them by one of the semi-state bodies, and they had to set up as a company in order to run that, in order to facilitate that. For the most part, I think that people get by as volunteer committees, and they do it very well. Governance generally tends to be very good across canoeing clubs anyway. Yeah, it is. Yeah. No, that's fine. I just I was just in relation, while I am on, just in relation to attracting youth members. This year we had a huge response, like every other club around the country. People wanting to get involved with paddle sports. So what we did was we offered, well, the way we attract youth members, it's 14 with an adult on the water. It was very successful for us this year. We have 3 father-son teams, and I think 4 mother-daughter teams, and they paddle regularly. We also set up the leaders. We had one of our, he's a level 2, but he went and he did the flatwater leader course that was run there, which was excellent. And he leads the flatwater paddles for the lesser experienced, and that's working out really well. Yeah. It is. I agree. That's a great way to get people involved, is to get parents off the sidelines, for want of a better way of putting it, and involved in the sport itself. Yeah, and it's taken our membership hugely. I mean, it's obviously we have more than we can cope with, really, But yeah, I'm lucky enough as chairperson to have a huge team surrounding me. Yeah, they're very good. Delegation always works, and I suppose the key thing with delegation is to have the people willing to take the roles on, and I'm lucky in that sense, But yeah, certainly are a lucky man, Corey. Yeah, so that's it. Thanks a million for this evening. Very informative, and yeah, it's wish everyone the best of luck, especially Joanne. Keep it up there. You're doing a great job. I'll bug out and leave somebody else have a chat there. Thanks.
We'll come back in a couple of years' time and see how Joanne is. All joking aside, guys, the chat tonight has been absolutely excellent. It's been really constructive, and I think it shows an appetite for similar. And myself and Maura have been discussing this about looking at the other roles on a club committee and continuing to reinforce this support for clubs thing. So it's really, and just commend Canoeing Ireland on doing this. This is a real positive thing, guys. It's not every NGB does this, and it's a real positive thing. It's a real support. So, and I think people begin to realise that you have a lot of the same issues, and you're dealing with a lot of the same problems. So that's a really good thing. And before we finish, can I just, Maura, just say thanks to Brendan and Joanne in particular for giving their perspective on things, because they got I think they got volunteered, I think is the term for this. I do this regularly, so I'm well used to doing it, but just say to the 2 lads there, I thought they were absolutely brilliant. I was glad to get their perspective on things. Yeah, absolutely fabulous. I agree 100%, David. So, and thanks to both of you. It doesn't, there's an element of preparation that goes into this, and thinking about it during the week, and God knows what, that far exceeds the time that you were online this evening. But really super to hear from both of you. And to David, I mean, really, you're the epitome of volunteering, in its best form. So we will certainly talk to you again about further. And lads, don't be shy about getting in touch with things that you need or things that you'd like. We touched on that, the issue with trying to get instructors upskilled in that. I have a couple of plans in the pipeline for next year. I'm still aware, as I'm always aware, of the fact that we are quite Dublin or Leinster centric, and trying to get away from that and kind of just have a nationwide presence, and potentially have some regional development officers in place. I think the first one will probably be around Munster. So we've applied for a couple of buses and a trailer full of boats to actually send people off around the country with them, so that we can be where you are, as opposed to always expecting you to come to where we are, which is not easy.
and we will always struggle with the fact that it's an expensive lead-in and it's a long lead-in to a level 3 instructorship, and there's a requirement. It's not like any other sport where you go out and do an evening or a weekend course and suddenly you're qualified. You know, it takes a lot more than that. So we'll support you in any way we can. I try and fill the gaps in the meantime. But just to thank you all. I mean, really, I think from the very start, I've always said that any sport that wants to be strong needs a strong club base, and it's the clubs that will actually build the sport. It's the work that you're doing is going to make the sport stronger. So thanks a million to all of you for doing it. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.